Hi, let's take a look at the asyst order module. Um, the purchase order module is one of the integrated applications that work with your existing general ledger accounts payable, and it is right here. It's got the same look and feel, so things you do on a daily basis, we've got those grouped together. Things you do more of a once a year, once a month, might be under the periodic tab. We'll take a look at some of the reports today. We'll look at the inquiries, and then we'll also cover the tables. With the purchase order module, under entry and update, this is where you enter in your purchase orders. And to give you an idea of the type of information you can track on your purchase orders, one is if you're entering it in, you can right-click and search if you don't know the vendor. With this system, you can have you can order multiple things down below, and you can charge it off to as many different accounts. You can also charge things off to a project. And what you're doing here is you're encumbering the funds. You can even set it up if you want a warning if you're over your budget, so you can get a warning right here. There is an option in the tables to set up approval levels, and this is where you might have one or two staff that need to approve the purchase order before you encumber the funds, and we'll take a look at that setup as well. Now, we also have the ability to do recurring entries. So just like you've seen in accounts payable, you can set up a template so that if you're ordering something new, it can default the items and the accounting, or you can make changes to that template. So that would be something that you would set up in tables as well. But this is the screen where you are entering in the purchase order. All of the accounting will flow to accounts payable, so you're not having to rekey in the same information, and we'll take a look at that on the accounts payable side. And things that you encumber here, you're going to also know if you're in the general ledger, you're going to be able to run this report and see not only, what have I budgeted, what have I spent, but you're going to be able to get the, if there's any encumbrances outstanding. So once again, on that balance, it'll take that into consideration if there are any outstanding purchase orders. So you get a little better idea of the actual balance. Now, going back to the purchase order module, as I mentioned, this is where you're going to enter in new purchase orders. It will print a purchase order. You can define in the setup what you want to print on that purchase order. You can define, do you want it to automatically assign it? Do you want to do a laser with general ledger information, or just a laser without that? You can also define if you want to have it check the budget availability. And here is where you would define if you do want to set up different approval levels, so that if you're level 1, where you would have a password so that you can approve that purchase order. And down below, you can have instructions, on that purchase order. Now, as you enter those in, if you ignore the over budget, you will have this exception report so that you can run and see what purchase orders are over budget. And here where you print the purchase orders, this is where you can do it by user or do it by group, but it's going to basically, you get to define down here the instructions, but it's going to pick up the items that you're ordering, the accounting, if that's how you defined it on this purchase order. Now, you obviously do not have to use purchase orders for everything, but as you're paying your invoices, it will bring in the accounting if there is a purchase order. So you would simply right-click here, and if there is an outstanding purchase order, it's going to bring over the accounting that you've already defined. So the GL accounts, it's going to bring over the encumbrance amount. If there are changes, let's say the purchase order is more than the invoice, you can liquidate that here so that you don't have that encumbrance hanging there, but it is tightly integrated. You're not having to key in the same information. It all flows to accounts payable so that you don't have to redo that work. Now, going back to the purchase order module, as I mentioned, this is where you're going to enter, you're going to print, and post those right here under daily. Also under periodic, you do have the ability, if you want to reduce the encumbrance here, you can, Most people do it through accounts payable. You're going to also know at any point at the year end, what encumbrances are still outstanding. And we also have some that will roll it into the new year, or you can have it take it off the book. So depending on what your process is. Under reports, this one will show you what's open, and you can do it by PO or by account number. And then, so this way you can see at any point what POs are still out there. So if it's at the end of the year and you want to make sure you get those invoices, you'll be able to see those outstanding purchase orders that you do have. And you might even have a situation where the purchase order is $10,000 and you've partially liquidated that. You can track that as well. Now, under the inquiries, so historically, you can see, by vendor, what's open, what's closed, or you can see it for all opened or all closed. And then if you drill down on that line item, it'll take you to the actual PO where you entered in the information. But as you can see, you can have multiple items and you can charge it off to, one account or multiple accounts. You just have to completely distribute that purchase order. And then the last thing under tables, as I mentioned, this is where you get to define what prints on the purchase order. The vendor maintenance, we're actually sharing the same vendor table as accounts payable, so that's a shared table. And if you want to set up a recurring purchase order, this is where you define, what do you want to call it, you give it a name, who the vendor is, the items, the accounting, so that you can select that as you do your recurring transactions. And if you do have taxes, this is where, we have some municipalities that will calculate taxes on their items. This is where you can define that as well. So like I said, if you have any questions, give me a call, but that should give you a quick overview of the purchase order module.